Definitely one of the most underused parts of a deer is the ribs. And they can actually be good. I'm going to show you how to do that today. This is how to cook venison ribs. It is a learning curve. I developed this method from working with lamb and goat ribs because they were just insanely fatty. So the first thing you're going to do, you want a reciprocating saw. I'm just using a Sawzall here, and I took the breast off first. Those sometimes I'll save to make stock and other things, and then we're just going to cut strips of ribs just like you would from a pig. Okay, there's the breast. I'm taking that off. Cut that into piece. That would be like your rib tips on a pig. And you can see there's a bloody part where the bullet went in. That's okay. We can cut that out because the most important part is trimming. But just cutting this like it's a pig, strips of ribs. Okay, now's the work. So we need to trim the ribs within an inch of their life. We are going to trim meat and fat off until basically as much fat is removed as possible. And it's going to look like there's no meat left on these on some of them, and that's okay because they're tricky. The meat is the good stuff's really between the bones, and it's going to puff up a little bit, and it's very good, but we need to get as much fat off as possible. So get a nice sharp knife, and we are just going to trim these things really heavily. Like most of this fat is all going to come off, and you can see that it looks like there's not a lot of meat on them at all, at least compared to a pig, because we really want to get this fat out because venison fat has a really low melting point, and a lot of people think it will taste like chapstick, which it kind of does. You just got to have them hot. And there's an extra trick after they're cooked. One thing that's a little bit different from pork ribs is that we fry them again, but just look at all that fat. Like this stuff it all has to come off. So if people just take ribs and throw them in the smoker or something, it's going to be bad. You really need to do this. And this is the exact same that I do for lamb and goat because lamb, goat, and venison recipes are all interchangeable. So once again, just going nice and slow, taking my time, and trimming off as much fat as I can. Don't be worried if a little bit of meat comes off. It's going to be fine. Next, we need to season them. Make sure to not over season them because these are going to lose some weight. They're going to shrink up. They're very thin. You don't want to have them be too salty. So if you are using a rub, I just use salt and pepper here, and then a rub that does not have salt in it. If your rub has salt, do not add any salt. And we're just going to season them on both sides with the rub. Use your favorite rub, or there's a recipe on my website. Wrap those in cling film or put them in something and put them in the fridge overnight. Then we're going to smoke them. You're going to smoke them at a reasonably kind of low heat, 250, 300, an hour or two max. Then the secret here is we're going to steam them. A couple different ways you can do that. I like to use parchment. You can put it in a pan with a little bit of water, or you can just put them in a steamer. And this is one of the secrets to helping them not dry out. Because if you cook them in the smoker the whole time, like pork ribs, they're not going to be very fun to eat at all. They're going to be really dry. They're going to be kind of crumbly. You don't want to do that. So that is one of the big differences between venison ribs and pork ribs. Okay, now these are coming out of the oven, and we're just going to cut them into pieces. And the last part that's also important, you can see there's still some fat. These ones are really lean, so they're not the best example. You can see there's a little bit of fat. We're going to cook even more fat out of them. We're just going to fry them up quick, and that's going to help remove a little bit of extra fat, and it's also going to caramelize those cut surfaces, and just look at how that pulls off. Doesn't that look great? It is. Okay, a few other things you can do here. One of my favorites is boneless ribs. So for boneless venison ribs, you can take the whole rack, cook it, smoke it, cook it, and then pull all the bones out. Then you can press that, chill it overnight, and then bread it and make chicken fried venison ribs that are boneless. Very, very good. You can do that with pork, again, goat, lamb, all kinds of things. If you have bloody bones or damaged ones and you don't want to throw them away, I have a recipe for bacon cure on my website, and I'll just hit these with a little bit of bacon cure. These I could have just smoked too, but I wanted some smoked bones to put in soup. So cure those for a couple days, smoke them, and really good, add it to a pot of beans or to make broth. And now we'll try some. All right, let's try some venison ribs. The key here is really frying them in the pan because that removes kind of excess fat. There shouldn't be a lot of fat left on them after you're done roasting them in the oven, but there's enough where some people might be like, oh, that's venison fat. So you fry those ribs individually in a pan. You're not going to be serving them as a rack. And this is kind of what you get. There's not a ton of meat on it. It looks like there's like no meat on it before you're cooking them, but the meat that's on there is really good. Yum. It's so good. They're so rich. You only need a few. They're a great appetizer. I love to serve them around the holidays just as kind of like little riblets for people to try. And if you don't tell them that they're venison, people will maybe think they're beef. They're really, really good. There you go. How to cook venison ribs so they don't taste like eating a mouthful of chapstick. Full recipe is on my website. Link at the top of the video description for that. Thanks for watching.